Dear friends, greetings in another chapter of Strategic Power. In this video, we will address the intriguing disappearance of dozens of high-ranking Chinese military officers, which occurred a few months after the still unexplained vanishing of the former Chinese defense minister, raising questions about the possible connection between these events and the extreme corruption that may underlie the profound purges led by Xi Jinping. If you are not yet part of our community, we invite you to subscribe to the channel and enable the notification bell to stay up to date with the latest news. In August 2023, Li Shangfu, then Chinese Minister of Defense, was last seen at a public event in China. It was only in October that China confirmed his removal from the leadership position in the Ministry of Defense, without providing details on the reasons for the removal or on the whereabouts of Shangfu, who has remained missing since then. In the last months of 2023, worrying reports emerged about the disappearance of dozens of high-ranking officers, including prominent members of the Chinese Communist Party. Recently, in late 2023 and early 2024, Chinese state media revealed that 9 high-ranking officers were expelled from political committees and military units, with confirmation that most of these officers were linked to the rocket force. This is one of the 5 branches of the Chinese armed forces dedicated to tactical and strategic missiles, both nuclear and conventional. The nature of these expulsions raises questions about the motivations behind the recent events and the role played by these officers in the Chinese military structure. And in early January, a Bloomberg report, based on U.S. intelligence sources, brought to light a surprising revelation. A significant portion of Chinese missiles were out of operation due to a peculiar reason. At least, their warehouses were full of water instead of fuel. In addition, many of the new silos built by China in recent years as part of its efforts to expand its nuclear arsenal simply do not work, facing serious problems that prevent the opening of their caps. These findings seem to provide an explanation for the mysterious disappearance of several Chinese officers, suggesting that corruption within the Chinese armed forces may be behind these operational problems. Given the single-party system and the closed nature of the Chinese regime, obtaining accurate information about corruption is challenging, but the pieces of the puzzle begin to fit together with periodic announcements, such as the dismissal of the 9 senior rocket force officers. By connecting these dots, it becomes clear that the purges led by Xi Jinping in recent years are aimed at corruption. The fight against corruption is a recurring justification for such actions in totalitarian regimes. A notorious example is the case of Stalin's Great Purge in the Soviet Union between 1930 and 1938. In 1936, Stalin, known for his profound paranoia, began to perceive enemies everywhere. Fearing being overthrown from power, he began removing anyone who could pose a threat to his dictatorship, often an imaginary threat, as his paranoid mind created. In just 2.5 years, historical records indicate that approximately 1 million people would have lost their lives under Stalin's regime, some through summary executions and others in the terrible gulags, a vast network of forced labor camps located in the most inhospitable regions of Siberia. The impacts of these purges were deeply felt globally, especially in the Soviet armed forces. When Stalin invaded tiny and vulnerable Finland in November 1939, he lost over 400,000 of the 800,000 soldiers sent, fighting against a Finnish army of just 150,000, moving on skis or sleds pulled by reindeer. In China's case, being a dictatorship, the true scale of the purges is difficult to determine. Assuming that for every purged high-ranking officer, at least 10 direct subordinates and 20 to 30 lower-ranking indirect subordinates are also removed, and considering only the disappearances and dismissals announced by the Chinese Communist Party in the last 12 months, we can estimate that 1,000 to 10,000 Chinese political and military officers have been purged by Xi Jinping. Many of them, including the former Chinese Minister of Defense, disappeared without a trace. This shows that corruption in China currently represents the greatest challenge to Xi Jinping's ambitious plan to transform the country into the leading economic and military power in the world by 2050. Obviously, no country can achieve such a goal with purges and hushed corruption scandals.